Hey, I'm Archie. I want to talk to you today about a couple things we have coming and to the community, and it's really awesome. So I've been testing these softwares as development, and I want to start out by kind of talking about what the different types of softwares. If you're not familiar with it, if you are, fast forward through this part. But when you look at these open source projects and Rotorflight in particular, and it's the same way with ELRS and with EdgeTX and some of those as well too. But you have different phases of the software. So you have developmental, and that's where the developers will work on new features. That's where they'll get tested out. There may be many prototypes, and it may not work sometimes in developmental, and that's okay. That's how everything gets better. And huge shout out and thanks to all the developers that have and continue to work on Rotorflight. It's an amazing system and I just love it. So, this is my way of contributing, is to help test and to, if I can help the community make stuff better, that's awesome. I don't always have the time to answer every question. So, if you have a question about some of this stuff, it's better to go into the Rotorflight Discord and ask those questions there, because, I have a family that a wife and two daughters that I love very much, and sometimes my schedule just doesn't match up to where I can always do that. And it's best to go there on the Discord and talk about the things. But as the software moves through, think of it almost as a confidence level. So you start out and you have the software will be in developmental, and that's where the meat and potatoes work is done. The making sure it works, making sure this proof of concept even makes sense. And sometimes something could get scrapped in that process. And then once those different things are done, then you start to say, hey, this one works well, like Governor. Governor's one that's been in development for some time now. And the developers have put in a lot of work. So, please say thank you to them. And don't forget to donate to the Rotorflight group. There's a link on the page, and on Facebook we also have it. There's a link within the Discord as well too. But the Rotorflight developers had been working on firmware to make the Governor setup easier and to make it to where it works well for a Nitro, because in the past it's been very much set up for an electric. But to make one that's easier to set up and works for a Nitro at the same time. So there was some versions of it, and if you follow my YouTube channel, you may have seen me post videos. That was just me testing. That was me giving feedback to the developers. But now, they've went back and they've worked hard and made this where it's really cool. And, so that part, these developmental parts of the software get combined together. It's what's called a snapshot. And at this, you're looking at, hey, are all these things working together well? Do we need to make some adjustments? Let's get some more people testing them. And then once that snapshot gets more finalized, it'll move into what's called a release candidate. Once it moves from snapshot to release candidate, then typically you don't add many features, because in snapshot it can still change or add features. But once it kind of hits the release candidate, the goal is to make it, hey, let's confirm this. If we need to make a change or two or fix some things, then there'll be another release candidate, like a RC1, RC2. And then once there's a good confidence level with it, then it'll push into release. So that's good to understand when you're looking at these firmwares, is to understand, hey, is this a developmental? Is this a snapshot? Is this a release candidate? And then is this a release? And it's important to understand that. So if you're someone that's new and you struggled to get your setup with the release, I would say that you probably should wait until you get to release before you load the new firmware. If you're someone that's like, hey, I'm pretty comfortable setting up, I can look it over, I can check my helicopter good, make sure nothing's going on, then maybe you want to push down into the release candidates. and you're getting like, hey, I got a pretty good handle on this. Like, I want to see what's coming. I want to test. I want to see if I can help the developers, because at the end of the day, we need more people. We need people that test these things and test the snapshots, test the development. And many times, like when I'm testing developmental, I will use a different flybarless. And like, this is my radio I fly with. But in many times I'll use, like, this is my simulator radio. So I'll use and put test firmware on this radio. And I have a separate flybarless that I use, like an Archer one that I use with this one many times to test stuff that's in development. And I kind of prove out that it works. Then once I get a good confidence level, I'll move it to my radio that I fly with. And that's my way. And I'm just sharing that. I'm not saying that's the best for you. You've got to be your own judge of what you consider, how far you want to go down that level towards the developmental, which is, cutting edge, but at the same time, it could have bugs. So you need to be aware of that. You need to accept the risk on your own. That's your own risk to accept. And if you want to go in and test that. But back to the topic at hand, we've had 2.2 release out. It's been awesome. These developmental things that are being reviewed to go into Rotorflight 2.3, software version 4.6. I wanted to share a couple of those with you today because they're really cool. And for me, doing this will help. If it helps you get set up or know, hey, what is this? And determine, hey, is this something, because these developmental softwares will soon be going into a snapshot. Is this something that when I see that snapshot announced, and if it's out by the time I release this video, I'll put notes in the video with words somewhere through editing what it's called. But let's dig into it a little bit. You can kind of see what some of these developmental things are. For me, a couple of the big ones are the governor. That one's really cool. And the Rotorflight rates, that one's really cool. I like it a lot. There's some other little cool things that are like the flybarless now in these test versions of 2.3 stores how many flights, how much flight time you have on the helicopter in the flybarless, which is cool. And if I fly with this radio and then pick up this radio, it with Ethos, it transfers between them. So that's really exciting too. But yeah, let me get the computer fired up here, and I'll record and try to get audio at the same time, and hopefully I can get this edited where it looks pretty good, or at least enough that it's valuable. So yeah, in a nutshell, just think about the different versions of the software as a different confidence level and how much they've been tested. Developmental is right on the cutting edge. It's just being developed. It moves into snapshot. This is, hey, we've kind of tested this together, or we've tested this. We've started putting it into the master. Everything's looking okay. Let's kind of bundle this as a snapshot and see how this all works together. Once that gets vetted, then and if more people are willing to test that, it can help that process go faster too. But again, this is open source, so it's volunteers' time. So we don't push or ask anyone to rush any of the items. But yeah, if we can get data or find bugs early on, it's helpful, and we can provide that, and we can take down good information, take screenshots, take videos, get all the data and give that to the developers and in the Discord. That's beneficial. So that's where it can benefit by having more people. We'll jump to it, and I'll cut over to the computer screen. Okay, so let's get started. First, let's talk about kind of what's in the radio. So I'll go here in the radio, I'll go to mixes. And in the past, I've used a lot of different like logic switches and special functions and audio files. I used to do that in Edge, but like Ethos, one of the things I love so much about it is that Rob's built so much of that into the Lua that I don't have to mess with it in the radio. Radios, literally this will operate with no logic switches, and I can just go here to mixes and create these 7 mixes, and I'm off and running. So it's just your standard 4 that comes pre-set up in the radio, sets you an arm that goes You just set that on switch. It's no curves, nothing special needed. Go to throttle, and I've just got throttle right here on this switch, 3-position switch. Bam, bam, bam. That's all it is. This switch, 3 positions, nothing else done to it. Profile, same thing. Profile, this one, 1, 2, 3, bam. That's it. That's how easy this one is to set up. So we set the basic 4, roll, pitch, collective, yaw. We set arm is 5, throttle is 6, profile is 7. In the past, I had used 4 positions on the profile, and I used that because it was so harsh pulling the motor down or shutting the motor down. It would jerk almost, and I didn't like the way that Rotorflight handled that spool down and then the recovery back out of it. So I always used a 4th profile, and then what would happen is when I'd go to auto, I would drop to a 4th profile. The RPMs would drop down. I would limit how much the throttle could move, and then when I flipped out of it, it would go like a transition between profiles versus like a recovery. But this new system's working so well that I'm not doing any of that, and what you see here is what I'm flying with. Basic 3 positions on profile, basic 3 positions on throttle. That's it. That's all it needs. But let me start a screen recording here on my laptop so you can see what I'm seeing here, and I'll edit this somehow where it picks up and looks okay. All right. So we're started. Okay. All right. So we're here on the governor. Now, this screen is totally new, so this whole governor page is new. And again, you'll need updated LUAs. If you're going to run the snapshot, you'll need updated LUAs, and you'll need an updated configurator that works with that snapshot as well too. So you'll need to uninstall the current one off your computer and put the one in for the snapshot. This one is already loaded up, and this is for a different developmental, but you'll get the idea. It has what I'm wanting to show you. So governor mode here, there's off, and if you hold it over it, there's little tool tips that's really nice. So there's like limit and direct. So I think limit's like if you want to use an ESC gov and you just want it to kind of limit how much the throttle is there or whatever. And then direct is like it's that, but the flybarless handle spool up or something. I haven't tested either one of any of these 3. They don't interest me. The 2 that interest me are electric and nitro, and those are the ones that I have tested. So I'm going to flip to electric here. Okay, new screen, really cool looking. So we have that. Now we have timeout for auto rotation, and we have timeout for throttle hold. Okay, what this means is if I'm in the air and I go out, and another cool thing on Ethos too, so like you're here in the mixes page, and if you want to see what your mixes are doing, hit this center button is the page button. So hit that page button and you jump right over and you can see like what all your switches and stuff are doing. I find that really useful. It's really cool. You don't really see it other than if you hit the page button. But all right, so if I'm flying and I hit the motor off, so the way I have mine set, this is motor on, this is auto, this is motor off. So if I go to auto rotation, how long does it stay in that mode before it drops back to off? So in other words, sometimes you'll hear this in ESCs called as bailout time. So I've got mine set at 15 seconds. So 15 seconds after I flip into auto, it'll go into recovery to spool back up. Then throttle hold timeout is if I flip it all the way back on accident, I've got 5 seconds to flip it back to run, and it'll fast spool, it'll recover back quickly. Just to be aware of this, default's 5 seconds. I find that's pretty good. But if you're out flying around and if you're one that's accidentally hit the switch at one point, you flip it back the other way, and for 5 seconds, you'll go back into fast spool up and it won't cause you a problem. That's what those 3 are. The next one here selects the throttle type. Okay, so And again, I'm going to show you what interests me. You know, if you're a person that just likes Edge TX or likes a different FBL, feel free to make a video. But this is what interests me and how I like to use it, and that's what I'm going to show you because it's what I'm interested in. So go here to throttle, and I'm going to go to function because that's the one that I like. And what we have now is we have off, idle, auto, and run. Now, idle, so off and idle, if you're running a Nitro, so when I flip this to Nitro, then what this means is this is throttle cut, this is just my base idle, this is a high idle. Some motors, like the old OS 50 Hyper, sometimes when you got them tuned right, they'd load up a little bit when they're, if you do an extended auto, they'd shut off sometimes. So this gives you the ability to have a little higher auto, or little higher idle for auto on a Nitro. We're talking about electric right now. What this can do is you can make it to where your motor still spins in auto, skip over idle, so just go from off to auto to run. Cool thing is, if you look at this little bar, when I flip my switch, I'm controlling the throttle channel. You can see what it's doing. So hey, if you ever been there and you can't get one to arm and you go to arm it and the swash plate jumps up and down, you got a visual on it now. So all this throttle channel is doing, and if you're running, if ELRS is your jam, and I've run ELRS for a long time, I'm finding myself leaning more towards twin now with the race mode because it's just so, it just feels so nice. But if you're into ELRS and you're wanting that best latency and you run D500 like I have for so long, what happens is you have good resolution. I'm gonna go hit a receiver tab and we'll save these changes. So we'll go here to the receiver tab. Okay, you've got full resolution on these first 4 channels. Now I'm running twins, so I've got full resolution all the way up. But you've got full resolution on these 4, and then in the past you had to use 5 for arming, which I know ELRS 4.0 just released, and you don't have to do that, but you still have to put arming somewhere because the flybarless has to get armed, not just the ELRS module. That change in ELRS 4.0 is only for the module so that it goes to full power transmit, but it's not for Rotorflight. You still have to have an arming channel for Rotorflight. So 5 is like a switch, an on-off, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, the others, they are lower resolution on ELRS. But what this does now is now you have, now with this function enabled, this throttle channel that I set up in here on a switch. So I set throttle channel 6 is this switch right here. You can see that. Bam, bam. I'm just going from, and it's just 100 endpoints. I didn't set up anything. I just did this, assigned a switch, and I'm done. So I go here, and you see my throttles going from there to there. Bam, bam. That's it. I've got profiles here on the next one. Bam, bam. Simple. Now, I go back to, and this is defaults, so it's going to set up at defaults. These, when they're at 0, the default here is 0, which means it's just reverting back to the defaults. So when I go over here to governor, I can see my bar. This is where it breaks down. Great. So now when I flip that switch, and this is just set up default, bam, bam, off. Now my governor's in off. Now I'm not armed. Helicopter's not going to spool up here. We're just seeing what my throttle channel's done. But off, auto, run, bam, easy, defaults. See how this is not exactly lining up there with 100? Watch this. Come back to a receiver. Okay, I look there. Throttle's at 2011. I come here, max throttle, 2011. I don't have to do this, but I can from OCD. Save it. Governor, bam, it lines up. That's all that's doing. Okay. Now I go back to hold. See, I'm below it there. This is working fine just on the defaults here with Twin. Defaults in the radio, all of the defaults. Just simple. All right, go back to receiver. Like, okay, I'm at throttles at 19 or 987. It needs to be at least 10 over, which would be 997. Yeah, okay, I'll put in 1010. Okay, and this is your throttle channel. This is what's telling it, hey, when my throttle channel does this on my radio, I want it to activate the different modes. Now I can go back over to governor. And yeah, it's a little closer. Bam, bam, bam. And remember, this is safety. Got to go to off, then you can arm, or you get the swash jumpy. All right, so we got that kind of figured out. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see what it does too. I'm going to go here and I'm going to make this 1500. Don't do this. Don't recommend this. I just want you, it'll help you visualize what it's doing. Save and reboot. Now I go back to governor. And see that? It just opened it up and it made it, okay, off is over here at 0. But again, this is not controlling the throttle on my helicopter. The flybarless is, the governor is. Okay, this is only me telling the flybarless what the radio signal sending to the flybarless, what mode it's activating. So you can see here, it's still, me putting it to 1500, it would go to idle instead of auto. So it's not going to work right there. But so I'm going to go here. We'll drop this back over to, go into receiver. We'll drop this back to that 1010 I put in, which is a really nice number for where this is at. And I'm going to save that. Cool. Well, I mean, we're set up there. Governor set up. As far as that goes. So now what we've got was we've got the communication to from the transmitter to the flybarless. And we're flipping through modes. Awesome. Now, new feature, and I don't actually have that set up right here right now, but we can activate so we can go into modes. And if we look down here, there is one called Governor Bypass. And you can activate this, and here I'll just activate it so you can see it. Oh, not a link, the range. Let's delete that link. We don't want that. So let's auto select the channel and let's say that I want it on this one just for kick's sake. Come on, pick it up. What is it? Aux 2. Yeah, there we go. Nope. Aux 1. Hang on just a second. That's aux 2. Let's go to modes. Let's go to aux 2 and let's save that. Why is that not working? Yeah, I probably did something wrong. Maybe because it's using a different one here. Let's do it an easier way. Let's just create a new one. Premix. Last position. Source. Put it on that one. Okay. Whoop. Put in the channel. Output that to, what do we have? 8. Let's do it 8. Yes. Okay. All right. So 8 would be aux 3. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's working now. Okay, so I'm gonna fix it here, and on these, if you double click them, yeah, getting a little cantankerous. It does on adjustments, but it's not doing it right here. All right, so now, go there, I'm in governor bypass. And we'll save it. Yeah, there we go, once I save it. Okay. Oh, wrong switch, that helped. All right, so there. Activated governor bypass off. Okay, let's look at what that does. I'm not going to use this for electric, but you could, and I'm definitely using it for nitros. But what that means is that when I flip this switch and go into bypass, I got a curve now. The cool thing is, it has nothing to do with the throttle channel. So this one right here that says throttle, like, it's not working off that. See, throttle's not moving. Collective is. And it's moving off collective here. Now what that means is that you have full collective resolution on the throttle channel now. So super cool for a nitro. So let's just jump into it right here for nitro. I'm going to switch, I'm just going to flip it to nitro. Okay. Save. All right. So now I set up my nitro, and I want a normal mode in it for profile 1. And this is what I'm flying, because I've been flying this. So on my nitro, and I'm not flying it on twin, I've got it on ELRS, but I've got it to where when I'm in profile 1, and I'm in motor on, which is forward, together, I did a quick little logic switch that says when those two switches are in those positions, it activates. And then I turn on bypass. So that means I have idle here, so I start the helicopter running in idle, or I can start in auto as a higher idle. And then when I flip, if I'm in profile 1, when I flip that forward, then I've got direct throttle right here. And that's what I find so cool. Now watch this. So 5 points, we got a 5-point curve, we got a 9-point curve. But in this configurator, voila. This is all I gotta do now. So nice. Super nice. Now I've got a normal curve, and I'd clean this up a little bit with the nitro, see where it kind of took off, but you get the gist. So now I can start my nitro. I can start up my nitro. You know, I can have it where this stick is not active. If I don't want to take a chance on bumping it, I can put it here in auto and start it. Or I can put it in idle, and I can start it in idle. But then when I flip those two forward, now I've got a throttle curve. So I can take off the heli. You know, it's the first run of the day. I'm in a different elevation. I went to a fun fly. I can take off in this normal curve. I can listen to the RPMs of the heli. I can do a pull out, get all the way to 100% throttle. I know I'm at 100% throttle, full collective, full throttle, and I can listen to my motor. And then I can drop back down on the mid-range needle, and I can listen to it. Okay, and then I can set the helicopter down. And I've got that ability, and then I go and I flip this switch now to profile 2, and I'm in governor mode and flying. And if I want to go back to that curve, I can go back to it. Cool thing about Rotorflights, there's many different ways you can set it up. I'm showing you the way that I'm going to set it up and the way that I've been flying it. So this is what I'm doing on mine, and I am loving it. This is what I've been missing the whole time with Rotorflight, and it is awesome. So the other cool part is, here's what you do. You set this so that when you drop into off, when you go to, and I'll show you. Let's go to motors. Okay, I set this motor off, so, and it's live update now. So if you go to enable override, and you enable live update, now when you slide this over to 100 and you adjust your high throttle, your servo arm moves on the helicopter live. So you just up and down, get that link to where it's just right, and bam, hit save. Done. Okay, same thing with motor off. Adjust that down. Adjust that down. Hit up or down, get that linkage, close the barrel and motor off. Okay, then what you want to do is you want to get low throttle. You want to get that like just below your idle point. So we all know, looking at like an OS card, you have that kind of spot where it idles, right? Adjust this one just below it. That way you have some range of adjustment. So let's say I know this motor, like, yes, it likes 1090. I adjust it. Guess what? We can do that. We can adjust it. Let's get that 1090 where it's right there in the ballpark, and then let's hit save. And bam, we got the throttle set up. So this is how easy the throttle is to set up. You set your servo right here in the motors, just those three. They live update now. I save it. Okay, so now where do I adjust my idle? Because the throttle channel coming from the radio is not controlling the throttle in the throttle servo, the fly barless is. So now, in governor mode, what's controlling it is this idle value. So basically, when it clicks out of off, it jumps to that second value that I put in on motors. And that's where it's at. Now, you want that a little bit below where your normal idle is. That way, if it's idling a little bit high that day, you can bump it down a little bit. And you can set a special function. I don't have it on this one, and maybe at some point later I'll kind of do a setup on the Nitro and show how I set one up now with this new test firmware. But what you can do is you can set a adjustment to where the idle is offset or adjusted. So that's what this idle percent and this auto throttle is. And so I have it set to where I adjust my idle right here on this trim, and then right here I've got output into the channels linked in through adjustments, so I can just go bump, 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 fine adjustment, not the ELRS low resolution. This is super fine adjustment, and you can adjust like how much each bump makes through the adjustments tab. But I can fine adjust that idle, and I can fine adjust that high idle right here. And what that does, you can visualize it and see it. So let's say I go to 20. The range is 25, and that's why I say you want to be just below it on that other page. But if I go here to 20, okay, now the throttle, once I'm out of off, once I'm out of off and I'm over into idle, it's not going to go below that value. That's the idle throttle. And the auto's set right there with it. So I haven't actually tried this. Let's try this and see if it shows graphically the auto too. No, it doesn't. But it's just all sitting a little bit higher. So that's where those are at. On a Nitro or on an electric, I don't care about that. But this is what it's going to look like to set it up to have a normal curve. Now, if you're someone that wants to have a normal curve on electric, you can bypass the governor and you can do it right here. You could do a V curve, or hey, let's say that I just want to be able to blip the throttle a little bit on my Nitro. I don't want it to go up too high, but I want to be able to just blip it a little bit. I can do this. Or hey, I haven't tried this, but let's try dropping it to 5. Okay. So I can drop it right here. And I can make it to where, hey, I could set it to where, hey, when I flip my remote glow on, I can blip the throttle just a little bit and rev it up and down, but it's not moving the throttle much, not moving the servo much. So I could give me a little bit of adjustment there. It's like Burger King, have it your way. All right. Now, we've talked about governor some, and I probably gave you just enough to confuse you, but because that's what I do, I ramble. But yeah, okay. I've spent enough time on governor. Let's talk about rates. All right, rates. So we've had actual for a long time. And some of these rates, they came over from Betaflight. Betaflight, you know, if you're not familiar with it, it's an open source project like Rotorflight, but for quads. And that's where Rotorflight was kind of forked from and started. So these rate calculations have came over from that. So you take these rates. So we've had actual. When I started with Rotorflight, I flew with actual. I found out pretty quickly that I liked race flight a lot better. For me, with actuals, like I could feel the difference in the sensitivity of the helicopter, like around center versus the end of the stick. I could feel almost like a step. When it went up, I could feel it like boom, and I didn't like that. I got a better, more linear feeling of the helicopter by putting in by going to race flight. And so I've run race flight for a long time. Like I'll set up like 360 degrees rotation rate on roll and pitch and like 650, 660 on yaw. And I'll run 15 expo on roll, 15 on pitch, and 50 on yaw. Those have been my numbers for a long time. But the developers have made Rotorflight rates. And I mean, I will have to say, when I heard about this, I was like, what? Why do I want that? Race flight is awesome. And I said that right up until I flew it and adjusted them a little bit. And I'm like, oh, wow, I want this on every one of my helicopters right now because it is amazing the way that it feels. Okay, so enough of Archie getting excited. Let's see what it does. So I'm going to throw in like some of my normal rates here, and it'll show up a little better with that. So we've got like 360, 360, 660, and that's what, you know, I like to fly with. And then I'll go like 15% expo and 15% expo here, and this is like, you know, this is like what it would feel like if I tweaked around with actual. Because the cool thing is, this right here, this one that says shape, it changes the apex of this expo curve. It moves that apex back and forth. So this 24 is pretty close to actual. So if you were flying actual rates, you'll like that. And I compared it. You back that to 16, now you're at race flight. This is where it like runs at race flight. And I flew them back to back because we have different profiles. I could put one here, and do that and see. So, cool. I've got 16 now. And you can see this curve change. So watch this. I'm going to increase it. See that slide out here? See how much that slides out? Look how much that goes out linear and then it turns right at the end. Now, I don't like that. It feels like a step in the control to me. I don't like that. But if you do, if you want it to be way more smooth around center, and then if you bang the stick out to the end, you get that rotation, then you can adjust this now. You can adjust it and dial it in to feel to what you want. So for me, I've been testing this thing, and I am absolutely so happy with 5. It is just, I can't wait to put it on all of my helicopters. It is so awesome. Because I get a little bit of reduced sensitivity around center. But then after I'm out in this range, it is just linear. The helicopter is just predictable. And when I'm doing stops and doing everything, it's just right there. That's for me. It may not work for you. The cool thing is, though, you can have it your way now. So you can set your rate and your expo. Simple. Rate, expo. Shape. Just how much the curve slides over and how that feels. It gives a big difference in feel in the air. And I just love the way it feels on 5. But that's Archie. So you play with it. See what you like. But this is awesome. And I'm so happy with this. And I'm so happy that I tried it because it's awesome. Now there's a couple things that's not visible right here that we can get to in the CLI. So let's check that out. All right, so I'm here and I'm gonna look at, so what, we were on what, 3 there? So let's just do diff profile, or diff all. Up, up, up. All right. Oh, I didn't have it. So here's a good reason. I'm not running the snapshot here. I'm running an F-bus testing firmware, and it doesn't have the race flight stuff in it. That's okay. It's not supposed to. Let me go over here and flash this thing with the one that does. So I'll go update firmware. I go back. I always forget that. We'll update the firmware. We'll detect the board. And if you got a snapshot, it'll be right here. It'll be right there where you can just grab it. You select snapshots there. It'll be there where we can get to it. This one here, the 251111, you don't want that one. That was an older version of Governor. You'll want the next one that comes out. But I'm going to do it off the board. I'm going to do it manually off my computer, just because that. Okay. And we got, let's get one of Polar. There we go. Open that. Now I've got that one off my computer, loaded up on it. I'm going to flash it.
Sensor loss.
And we're just loading that on, when you look at it here, you have a target. So you want to always make sure you got the right target for the flybarless that you're using. This is a Vantech RF007. And then I didn't select a software version because I wasn't loading it online. I loaded it local off my computer and got it there. So bam, we're updated. We're on the one to test Rotorflight rates now. All right, so I'm going to connect back. All right, now, because I don't have anything set up here, nothing's going to be set up, and I just actually wiped the flybarless, but it's all right. I got backups on backups. So let's go here, go into CLI, and I'm just going to do a dump all this time. Okay. Because I want to show you something. Okay. So you've got, this is a rate profile. We have something called these two right here. That's a cyclic ring. Oh, I got the wrong ones. I didn't copy it. Oh, come on. Joys of a laptop. Okay, so we got cyclic ring and we've got cyclic polar. Okay, so what these are is that cyclic ring just basically means that this is full throw and this is full throw. If I go here, I won't push the servos further than I would here or there. So it's a cyclic ring that takes it to where you can't like get extra pitch if you go all the way up in the corner, that binds up the helicopter or causes it to load up more. Around 100 on this, and I've flown it there, and I can notice a difference. I've gone out and do like sideways tic-tocs or do different maneuvers, and I can tell like the helicopter doesn't bite in as hard. And if you go to 100 on this, that's getting you to where it's like a true cyclic ring. 150 means it's not doing anything. 100 means it's like a true circular ring. Then you have cyclic polar. And this is where, like, the way the gimbals work is how far you throw it. And I'll try to, there's a graphic someone put up on the Discord. You can go there, go under features. There's one for Rotorflight rates, a thread under that, and you can look at all the discussion on it. But it's basically just saying like, hey, when I move this switch, if I wanted the swash to go in a perfect circle, I've actually got to do a little bit more of a square than I do an actual circle. And if I turn this to on, it calculates it in more of a circular pattern. And it changes it so like doing sideways tick-tocks is the way I've been feeling it. Like I don't have to go quite as far on the stick doing a diagonal tick-tock. I haven't really figured out if I like that yet or not. I'm kind of leaning that I don't, but it'd be good to get some other thoughts and opinions on it. Right now, I'm kind of like, this feels a little weird. Maybe after I fly it some more, I'll get to where I like it. I definitely do like the cyclic ring, and I'm playing with what level, and I just like it to where, like, if I'm, because I tune my helicopters with a lot of pitch, and, you know, sometimes I'm running 15 degrees collective. I've got a lot of cyclic, and, you know, if I'm getting up into the corner, I'm you know, loading the helicopter up pretty heavily. So I'm thinking I'm liking this thing like around 130 or so is what I'm playing with. So I turned cyclic polar ring back off, but that's another cool thing that you can play with. Let the developers know what you think about it in the Discord if you do test it. Okay. I'm going to show you one more thing right quick, and then we'll conclude this video. Right here. Stats total flight time. Stats total flight time in seconds. And then this, if you had a GPS, it'll be in meters. If you're flying, when it goes into takeoff and it goes through the cycles, it'll increment this up on ethos. I don't know if Edge does it. I don't know if somebody spent the time to develop it. I'm not as interested in testing Edge. I like my ethos radios, so once you get used to them, it's hard to go back to Edge. But yeah, so it'll increment up the number of flights, and it counts up the number of seconds, stores it on the flybarless. Like I said earlier, if you switch to another radio, it updates that radio, it increments it up, so it's always keeping up to date with the latest stats. But let's set that governor up. I just love how easy this is. Let's do Nitro. Let's do function. You save it. Now, yeah, I know I haven't calibrated the accelerometer. Okay. All right. Now, Lua. Bam. 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 In the Lua, go over to hardware. Governor. Bypass curve. And I can set that curve right here on the radio. Sweet. Oh, yeah, I've got MSP, or I'm active through here, so it's not going to save it. But you can do it right here. Bam, hit save, and you do that. You can update it. So all these new features are incorporated into this Lua. The other cool thing is, and I'm going to disconnect from this flybarless, and I'll go over to the one that the one that I've been flying on, and I'll show you something kind of cool. I don't want to go into setup on it right here on this one, but you know, comment if you want to see a setup on it. But this is what I'm testing right now and operating. Is I've got mixes set up to where I have a throttle for my electric and I have a throttle for my nitro. A throttle mix. So I've got a 4 position. So basically I flip this back, I'm in throttle cut. I arm it, I flip out of throttle cut, and then this works just like I was showing you earlier on the electric. So when I go forward on these two, I'm in bypass. I come out to profile 2, I'm in idle up 1 or governor working, idle up 2, bam. If let's say I'm flying around, no matter what this switch is doing, I flip this to auto, it's high idle, set the helicopter down, or to off. On the Nitro, this is idle, so the motor stays running right there until, you know, I don't like killing the motor by a throttle cut. I pull the fuel line or pinch the fuel line off. Burn as much nitro out of the motor as you can. But I've got it to where this Lua gives me telemetry to where I can just set a couple simple logic switches so that Gov Mode 4 is when it's selected at Nitro. Gov Mode 4 tells the radio to switch over to that other throttle mix. And then I've got one for bypass. And I'm running this on, I'm running one model for both my electric and my Nitro helis. Now I go to mixes, so I've got that. And then I was talking earlier about, so I've got idle and auto adjust, and I've got my capacitor or switch glow. I run those on the same channel so I can, it's universal between the two. And I've got governor bypass in here 11 right now. And I may change this up a little bit, but you can see right here on the governor bypass, which it's not active because I don't have a Nitro hooked up to it. But when it is, and I flip these two switches down, it activates. And then you can see here on the idle adjustment. So now when I adjust that, you can see it goes to positive and negative 100 on that mix. And then this one goes to positive and negative 50. And that's the way that I've got my flybar set up. So when I hit this one up and down, I'm adjusting my auto. Hit this one up and down, I'm adjusting my idle. And that's really cool. So, all right. I know I threw a lot at you. I went through it fast. This is not meant to be a tutorial. You really shouldn't be in here and testing this stuff if you're new to Rotorflight. If you want to watch this video and see what's coming, that's cool. And you can see where I did, when I did it in the Lua, it did update it here, which is really nice. But like I said, this is not a demonstration on how to set it up. This is just showing you what some of the stuff does. You be the judge. You accept the risk. If you want to fly a snapshot, you know, if you want to fly a release candidate, I'm personally flying the developmental on a couple of these. And then as soon as the snapshot comes out, I'll be flying that on my helicopters because I am absolutely loving this for the Nitro. I'm loving it for the electric. I like how easy this sets up. I like how Rotorflight rates, feels in the air. I like the cyclic ring that I can get just a little buffer out at the corner of the stick so that I don't quite have all that bite. And I still haven't made my mind up on polar. You tell me, do you like it?